Five, four, three.
Good evening, and welcome to the Reel McCoy. I'm your host, Meffistoe, and always with me, my hetero life mate, On My Feelings. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, buddy.
What is the Reel McCoy, you might ask? The Reel McCoy is your weekly movie podcast where we ask you to go and watch a movie. You watch it, come back to us, and we break it down, spin it all around, and just completely geek out on it. Today, we continue our Oktoberfest of Halloween cheery delights of horror films and such. With I should say a cult classic, Evil Dead 2. And with us, special guest, Mr. Matthew Kadish, who said it's one of his all-time favorite.
It's in my top movies of all time list, yes. I love this movie.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Big Raimi fan overall, or specifically?
Yeah, I think Sam Raimi is a very underappreciated, underrated director and storyteller. I love Sam Raimi, but more than Sam Raimi, I love Bruce Campbell. So
interesting.
I think you may just love all of Renaissance Pictures then.
On My Feelings, how many times have you managed to watch this movie this week?
Just twice, but one documentary on the side, and then going through for a lot of old notes. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, me too. I've been going through some sort of journey in terms of going through horror films. I'm not a horror film guy, so I've made myself kind of, nose to the grindstone and kind of reappreciate these older, like mostly 80s films, but older horror films with the project I'm doing every single day. Movie review of one movie. It's like watch one movie, do a review, 5, 6, 7 minutes. And it's been enlightening and very, very interesting. So before we kind of dive right in, please, Matt, tell us what you've been up to recently.
Well, I'm coming to you guys from the Salty Nerd Studios here in Las Vegas. We do our weekly podcast show where this month we've been reviewing a lot of horror movies. We just released our review for The Shining, which was very interesting because I'm a bit of a film snob. Like I went to film school, I've made movies, and I love studying films. And Stanley Kubrick is one of the all-time greatest filmmakers, in my opinion. And my Philistine co-hosts just didn't appreciate this movie like they should have, and so like we got it. We got into a very good.
Vader.
All three of them.
Oh.
Well, I actually Jude liked it, but she liked it because she likes horror movies. But Vader and Alex both hated it. They thought it was pretentious garbage, and so we had a nice little debate about the difference between artistry and pretentiousness, and a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, like you, Mephisto, I'm not a big horror movie guy. Like I don't typically enjoy horror movies, even though horror movies tend to be where a lot of the innovation in cinema kind of comes from because they're so cheap and easy to make. Like I just went and saw The Exorcist Believer the other night. But I'd argue that Evil Dead 2 isn't really a horror movie so much as it is a comedy or a send up of horror movies in a lot of ways. And we can get into that, but
yes, there's a very, very big note about that.
Yeah. And that's part of the genius of Sam Raimi. But getting back to what we've been doing, we're getting ready to kind of start planning out our content for next year, and we're going to be doing a lot more kind of like sketches and fun stuff and live streams. So we've been very busy with all that.
Cool. I myself did watch or rewatched it again. Did my review as a part of that project I'm doing, but also dived a real deeper into things because I only dive deeper into stuff that I really like. And this time around, it kind of fell on my lap because I was doing my research and the one thing that YouTube recommended to me is like, oh, look, this is a behind the scenes documentary of like an hour and a half of just Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi and Ted Raimi and all those guys, all the makeup guys, all of them talk about the movie and how it was made. So it was a great preparation for the show. And we'll interject all that stuff. But first, we'll start with our first segment of the night. It is called Behind the Screens.
Action, take 2.
Wait, we got a visitor. Hold. My daughter.
Good night.
Good night. There we go. So behind the screens, before we interrupted, where we go to All My Feelings, get the lowdown on behind the scenes, production stuff, all that good schnick. Take it away, dude.
I was going to say it's the first time we've seen the little one on camera, which is a podcast first. And almost 2 podcasts first, but no, you've messed up the behind the screen stinger before, so only one.
I did say that from all the stuff that I had to do this week, writing, recording, editing, all that stuff for the project, I literally forgot to upload the correct behind the scenes, and it was from last week. So it is what it is. So take it away, my good man.
It's the Critters one. It's the Critters one, and actually from the wrong Critters movie, which Tom knows all about. So
you better stop.
What's so great about it is the original concept of the Evil Dead 2 was actually the entire premise of Army of Darkness. In fact, it was supposed to be Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. Supposed to lead directly into it. But due to the lack of interest in the concept of a sequel, Raimi shelved it to work, oddly enough, with the Coen brothers on a film called Crime Wave. Terrible movie. But while he was actually in that house working with the Coen brothers while writing that, he was kind of writing a redraft and rescripting of with his friends Scott Spiegel on a different version of the Evil Dead 2, which comes up in a second. But when he was when he was living with the Coen brothers, he was also, you know who their roommate was?
Who?
Helen Hunt.
Great. Awesome. And
fun. So anyway, after Crime Wave bombed, the partners of Renaissance films, including Mr. Burt Campbell himself.
Bruce.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
Burt Campbell. Wait, what?
Yeah. Sorry.
Get it right. Get it right. God damn it.
Hey, he's
He
a
deserves
model.
respect.
Yeah,
Yes.
he does. So Bruce, yeah.
So they were going to actually work with Embassy Pictures on actually getting the revamped version of Evil Dead 2 made with Embassy Pictures, who worked on Crime Wave. But Embassy dropped it after some of the pre-production delays and everything. But Dino De Laurentiis had been interested in Raimi's works beforehand, the main producer of DEG, who also Rosebud, which we'll talk about in a second, because that's a whole fun thing. De Laurentiis approached Raimi to direct an adaptation of Stephen King's Thinner, which we've talked about, Meph.
Yes.
Raimi turned him down, but De Laurentiis was always interested in Raimi's projects, especially because King was a huge fan of Raimi's.
Yeah, if I can inject here real quick.
Yeah,
I
go
know
ahead.
we'll probably get to this, but so Stephen King was a huge fan of the original Evil Dead.
Yep.
And in fact, he had like a little blurb quote that he allowed them to use on the poster, which helped, kind of generate interest for it in the theaters. And when he was making Maximum Overdrive with Dino
Yep.
De Laurentiis, he actually told Dino, he was like, "Look, you need to make Evil Dead 2 because these guys are awesome." And so, like, if it weren't for Stephen King, we wouldn't have Evil Dead 2.
Yep. And this also
Someday we will cover Dino De Laurentiis because he's a very interesting character.
yes. And as Tom at the time, it was actually still Maximum Overdrive was still actually under the original short story name that King was producing. It's just called Trucks.
And just FYI, we actually reviewed Maximum Overdrive a couple weeks ago on our podcast.
Such a fun movie.
No, it's not. But it's got a great soundtrack.
I just had fun with it because it's like, yeah, if you like AC/DC, you'll love Maximum Overdrive. If you like hearing the same 4/4 drum beat for about an hour and a half,
if you like Emilio Estevez.
Yes.
I do like Emilio Estevez in some things. Okay. Yeah.
De Laurentiis actually agreed to fund with a budget of $3.6 million because he insisted on it having the same or as lower than a budget than the original Evil Dead. And he told them that you cannot go with a medieval concept.
Okay.
Well, he wanted it to stick to the cabin in the woods concept because it was cheaper. But the original Evil Dead was made for like I think $30,000. So like it was very, very low budget. Yeah. So he gave them a couple million to play with. But he basically said, "I'm not giving you what you need to do period medieval horror film. You're gonna have to work with this."
Yes, because everyone at Renaissance Pictures, they wanted $4 million in total, but De Laurentiis is like, I'm not budging 1 cent over 3.6. And what the best part about that is that De Laurentiis agreed, as long as they agreed to those stipulations, 20 minutes in their conversation.
Okay.
Like, all right.
Like
greenlit.
Very special kind of guy.
Yes.
Yeah, and Raimi is just like 3.5 million. I think I can work with that.
I think we could make that work. So Raimi, while also working on Crime Wave as well, was working with his writing partner Scott Spiegel. And Scott Spiegel is kind of one of the unsung heroes of Renaissance Pictures, and especially of this film. And between the two of them, that's where the concept of it turning the horror angle on its head and making it more of a comedy really came from. And that was really more of Spiegel's influence. In fact, one initial concept was that they were actually going to be ex-convicts trying to actually raid the house, holding Ash hostage, trying to find buried treasure, and they find the Necronomicon. That's actually a concept that they were
movie.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of the same movie because what was it? The hillbilly guy, like he was based off of like one of those robber characters. So like, him and his girlfriend and like the whole
Yeah.
group
Bobby
that,
Joe.
that ends up
Yeah.
there were supposed to be, like criminals who, and it's kind of funny because I think that Raimi actually kind of took that concept into a later movie with Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton. I forget the name of it, but it was like a weird heist movie.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, but yeah, it would have been. It probably would have been a little bit more ridiculous if they had gone with that thing. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. So speaking of Spiegel, Ash fighting his hand was based off of one of Spiegel's old 8mm concept films, horror films, because they used to make them back in Detroit when they were kids.
Cool.
But that actual concept of the hand fighting itself was actually based off of, you'll know this, Matt, Hamburger Helper commercials.
Okay.
Yeah. The glove by itself moving. Yeah.
And definitely not Adam's Family like recreation, right? Because it gave me some vibes after the hand kind of left. It was it was taunting Ash. I was like, yeah, that's like the thing.
The thing.
Right?
Yeah, kind of, but not really. It was never actually listed as one of they were trying to do an homage
They
anyway.
never mention it anywhere that I could see, so I don't know.
Yeah. Although it is a sequel, there are some major continuity errors that they try to just brush aside immediately. One, the Necronomicon shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it's burned.
The cabin shouldn't be there.
It should. Why?
Most of it's kind of parts of it were actually
Maybe
destroyed.
you haven't seen Evil Dead lately, as I have seen it a week and a half ago or something. It's definitely still there. It's just the bridge is not there.
Well, the other thing is, where are all of their dead friends?
So the thing about Evil Dead 2 is that it reboot. It's a soft reboot. It doesn't really acknowledge the first movie. The first I think 10 to 15 minutes of it are basically a recap of the first movie. Like they redo it, and then from that point on, it's a sequel. So,
well, the point is that De Laurentiis couldn't convince New Line Cinema to give him the original footage, so they can actually splice in the the original Evil Dead with the new Evil Dead, and because they wanted people to sort of be with them, so have that little recap thing. So the whole bit is Ash going back to the cabin, which is strange. Why would he go back to the same cabin where he fought the Deadites and the demons? And yeah, so they literally used like the first 10, 12 minutes as a...
Yeah, and I think De Laurentiis mandated that he was like, you have to assume that the people watching this movie, because it's going to get a wider release, hadn't seen the first one. So you need to basically use the opening of the movie to get the audience up to speed before you go into the sequel.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a weird way to make it accessible for people who hadn't seen the original, but also take people who've seen the original and bring them along really quickly into the new stuff. So
yeah. On my feelings, got any more?
Yeah, one of the best bits has to be Ted Raimi really stepping up as the Deadite Henrietta.
Yeah.
His entire suit was made out of just latex. So he was sweating liters.
Yeah. And also the contacts were
completely opaque, so they were utterly blind. Well, yeah, so they had. I was going to talk about that when we saw the first Linda Deadite. Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Yes. Well, Ash's chainsaw was actually a modified one, was just with a 12-volt battery, so he could actually fit his hand in there, so it would still look like it was still cut off at his wrist. And the teeth were filed down, obviously for safety reasons, of course. But Yeah, sometimes with B horror films, especially at this point in time, you never know. Maybe they just fucked around and forgot.
You never know. With
And
that,
then they also like all the smoke that was utilized was just tobacco smoke that was filtered through a pipe that fed through the back end for the exhaust from the chainsaw.
to be absolutely fair, one of the actresses didn't mention the fact that Raimi was chain smoking about 2 packets a day or something
Yeah.
crazy like that. It was like,
Yeah.
well, he constantly was smoking all the time, so I'm not surprised.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, he was the one blowing the smoke
Yeah,
out for the chainsaw. And it's kind of funny because one of the things about Raimi is that he's kind of a sadist in a weird way, because he likes torturing people he cares about.
Yeah.
So like, him and Bruce Campbell were childhood friends, and like, every movie that Bruce is in, he tries to think of ways to torture him. His brother, who was playing Henrietta, like he just got off on like, torturing his poor brother in that hot latex suit and having to pour sweat out of it every day because it was so hot. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, considering the fact that Bruce Campbell had a stunt double, but half of the stuff he actually did was like, oh, let's just throw him like off the off the stairs into the basement. Oh, let's just make him go through the car, or just have a full makeup on him and just dunk him inside this pool of muddy water, and he just has to survive for like 20 seconds, otherwise the shot wouldn't work. Stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the blood scene too, because that was a real. Oof.
Oh,
Yeah.
the buckets of blood. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that.
Yes.
All right. Before
Um,
you got anything else?
Yes, I was going to talk about. Well, obviously, when they tried to actually get this rated by the MPAA, they were obviously going to get an X rating. So, what
Correct.
De Laurentiis did is he decided to release it under his quote unquote shell company called Rosebud Pictures. And the logo for it, Sam Raimi drew himself for Rosebud.
And he had one of the animators that worked on the I think who worked on the puppet dance to do the
Yes.
sort of
Animatronic,
animation you get at the start.
Yeah, it was like the
Yeah,
animation.
and it was funny because like when they were submitting it to the MPAA and they kept coming back with an X-rated X rating, Laurentiis was like, "Hey, you need to start making these cuts so we can get down to an R." And Raimi was like, "If we cut out everything to
This
get
is
an
like
R rating,
62 minutes.
the movie would be an hour long." And so
Yeah.
Laurentiis basically was like, "Okay, well, I can't legally under my company release an X-rated movie." So he basically created a new company just to release this movie unrated. So it didn't release with an X rating; it released unrated.
Unrated. Yeah.
Cool.
The only thing I was going to add was obviously because it's a blink if you miss it, but the Freddy's claw from Dream Warriors.
The Freddy's claw?
Yeah,
Freddy's glove
in the workshed
from Nightmare of Elm Street. It's in the workshed.
in Dream Warriors. It's the one we talked about when we reviewed Dream Warriors.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right. All right.
and there
cool.
is the poster that was in there that was an homage to just blanked on the name of the film, but it was an homage. Wes Craven, but it also had one was in The Hills Have Eyes had a poster too that was called back to that, and then there's the workshed story, but we'll talk about that when we get to that terrible dubbing.
Okay. Right. Let's just start with our first game of the night. Let's get it done. It's called Not Behind. It's called Missing Marquee. God damn. Missing Marquee is where we take 10 posters of movies, have their text written off, display them, and our guests will have to guess which movie this is. Let's get
We're having a stellar night, by the way, Matt, if you couldn't tell.
Flying the rockets and the bombs. Like,
Fight
go
Club.
ahead, Matt.
Fight Club.
Fight Club.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Big Trouble, Little China. Correct.
I believe this one was Chocolat.
Chocolat.
Con Air.
Con Air.
Dave.
Dave.
This is Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Correct.
And I believe this one was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Correct.
Scarface. Singing in the Rain. Universal Soldier.
Correct, sir. That was cool. A lot of people, not you, got stuck on Dave.
Because
Nobody
most people
cared
think
about
it's
you.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
It's the outfit.
It's not a good movie.
Well,
and
like
I
it
feel
was
like,
kind of like if you had seen like the full picture, it might have helped out.
Yeah.
A bit, but
I didn't like. Was it
I-
Michael Klein? No. Kevin.
I
Kline?
love
Kevin
I love
Kline.
that movie though, Dave. It's a great movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I prefer the President is in Love with Michael Douglas. Sort of
Oh, yeah.
on the same vein as Dave. Not really, but sort of.
That's not the title, but that might be the title in Hebrew.
The President is in Love.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe. Hey, stop. Anyway,
No, I'm actually trying to think of what the name of that film is now.
The President is in Love.
No, it's I know the movie you're talking about. It's with Martin Sheen as well. Like he plays like the president's.
He plays like I wanted to say the concierge, but it's definitely not.
Chief of staff. That's what it is. And
Indifference.
See, what's so bad is I've been watching a lot of gangster movies lately, so that the only thing I was thinking of was Consigliere, which is that's not right either.
The American President is what it's called. Yeah.
See,
okay, fine.
Tom.
Plays the major domo of the United States. Anyway, I was gonna say, this movie actually starts off with explaining what the Book of the Dead is, which we didn't get for the first one.
Well, the first one had a reveal to it, and they explained it during the reveal. But with this one, I always think that it's always good to assume that you have to set up supernatural elements, otherwise the audience isn't going to be there for it when you start introducing them. So I really liked how plus it kind of gives you the feeling of like this cheesy animation and stuff like that. So it kind of gives you the tone of the movie right off the bat.
Yeah, well, you go with a lot of the stop motion in this. You get that Jason the Argonauts from like the late '60s, early '70s feel of that kind of stop motion that was purely done by claymation. It was it's fantastic.
I do love the fact that because you had sort of that intro, it, like you said, Matt, it kind of replaces that exposition dump that they had while listening to the tapes at the original film. Kind of replaces that, but the animation here is done with real paper and real guy actually writing slowly each letter until it kind of flips over, and they used foil to differentiate between the two pages in order for them to do the actual page turning, which was interesting because what it does, it makes the movie kind of feel tactile, like you can literally touch that book. And by the way, Tom in the chat actually has the prop book. He was showing it this week on
Necronomicon, yeah.
And he was like, maybe I should read this. And everybody in the chat was like, yes, read it.
Read it out loud, yeah. What's great too is also this sets up with the way that it's shot, it sets up a Raimi staple that is apparent throughout most of his works, except for some of the Spider-Man films, where he has that quick sped up animation, or that where he actually will speed up frames in a scene in order to make things work, because it was done constantly in again all the Renaissance picture stuff like Hercules, Legendary Journeys, Xena Warrior Princess, which obviously starred all of these guys too, but it was done constantly throughout the series.
I liked it that on one of my viewings this week, my wife stepped in and he was like, "I know this guy." I was like, "Yes, he's in Xena Warrior Princess. We've watched every."
He's Italicus, the Prince of Thieves.
And
duh.
No, she was like, "No, that's Joxer." It's like,
no, that's Ted Raimi is Joxer the Mighty.
But it's it was fun, and she didn't like the movie at all. It's like, why does he have a chainsaw? Don't worry about it.
Sacrilege. You got to divorce her.
No, I don't think so. She's too good looking and amazing. Anyway, one of the things as Ash is spending some time in the cabin again, part of that intro is telling us about what's going on, because when he finds out that tape, starts to listen to it, we get the introduction to the actual professor and his wife Henrietta, who were in the cabin and mysteriously disappeared from the first movie. I mean, you only hear his voice, and in this one, you actually have somebody to look at and somebody to relate to, along with Annie and her fiance that we will meet up a little bit later. But we do get to see the book, and we do get to see the dagger, and kind of put them both in the same scene and same kind of atmosphere just before the action begins, just to set everything up so we know what's going on when basically the shit hits the fan.
Yes, and what's great too is the fact that they actually included the Kandarian dagger, but they never actually put any impetus behind like how important that dagger actually is. And if you watch Ash versus Evil Dead, you know how important that is.
Yeah, because I don't think they don't explain it this time around either.
No.
It's in the sort of in the iconography. It's
Iconography.
iconography. It's in the pages that Annie brings them, so you can see basically the character of Ash with the stuff. I'm not sure he's carrying the dagger though, but it's been used as well in this one, but not explained. So after
and
Ash,
just as an aside too, real quick, originally they were actually supposed to have all of them together. That's
the
Ash.
original cast.
No, it's going to be Ash, Annie, Jake, Bobby Joe, and Professor Ed Gainsley, the blonde-haired guy. They were all supposed to be at the beginning of the film together, already in the cabin when the film started.
Yeah, but it was changed in order to make that little 10-minute intro.
Yep.
Which is basically the whole. It's supposed to be the whole first movie in a nutshell.
Mhm.
So we get to see Linda. It's the same. I checked it. The name Linda is the name of the girlfriend in Evil Dead 1. It's just a different actress. They're using the same necklace that he gave her, all that stuff. That basically the necklace that keeps them grounded within the world before he kind of escapes into being a demon and then comes back.
Mhm.
But we do get. I want to get to the part where. This part. I want to set this up. Hold. Give me a second. So the end of Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead. Ash goes outside of the cabin. Light is just coming up, and we see sort of a demon. We don't see the demon, but we see the camera kind of wiggles about and kind of does that last little jump scare when it kind of attacks Bruce or Ash, and we get to see this as sort of a starting point as it literally pushes Ash away. Sort of the same scene again, and then he gets pushed away, and then he falls into a muddy pool. That kind of starts Evil Dead 2, actually. Matt?
Yeah, so the recap of the first movie, which is the opening of this film, it basically just focuses on Ash and his girlfriend and him having to kill her after she gets possessed and then burying her and stuff like that. So it leaves out Ash's sister and the other guy from the original film. So it's a little bit more streamlined, but basically this is both a soft reboot and a sequel all in one. which is very interesting. And I think we explained the reasons why they did that earlier in the podcast, where basically the producer was like, hey, assume nobody's seen the original because it was like an independent release. And basically just retell the first story, give it enough context, and then go in whatever direction you want. And the whole thing, like most of this movie is just Bruce Campbell being brilliant, right?
Yes.
And
Definitely.
he is the one who basically carries this movie on its shoulders. But in addition to that, the first time I ever saw this movie, it was at a sleepover when I was in high school.
Perfect.
And because I hate horror movies, like I'd always see this movie at the video store back when video stores were actually a thing. And the color or the cover of it was the skull with like the eyeballs, right? And that thing always freaked me out so much. I was like, I'm never watching that movie. And when I was in high school, I had a bunch of friends who were just as big of film nerds as I was. And so like we were spending the night at this buddy of mine's place. And typically when we would spend the night, we would just like marathon movies. And that's how I saw Monty Python and a bunch of other films that I'd never normally watch. And they were like, we're going to watch Evil Dead tonight. And I was like, ooh, I don't know. I don't like scary movies. They're like, dude, it's not scary. It's hilarious. And so like they put on Evil Dead 2. And I had never seen the original Evil Dead. So like we watched Evil Dead 2 and we were Mystery Science theatering this thing. Like they were calling out names and jokes and stuff like that. And telling me like, wait for it. And so like, I just had the best time watching this movie. I became obsessed. And then like we watched Army of Darkness right after it. And I was like, these movies are hilarious. And then I went and rented the original and I watched it and I was just so impressed with Raimi's visual style and his like kind of sense of humor and storytelling and stuff like that. And I must have watched these films thousands of times, like studying like every single shot, especially in the original Evil Dead, because it was like so low budget that I felt like I could do stuff like that. And funny enough, I met Bruce Campbell back when AOL chat rooms were a thing. And because I'd go on
nice.
I'd go on the AOL message boards for Evil Dead. I'd be posting all these questions about how they got this one shot. Does anyone know like how they did this technique and that technique with like the evil cam? And he would always kind of lurk on the boards just to kind of see what the fans were talking about with the movies. And he started like emailing me essentially. He's like, hey, here are the answers to your questions. And I was like, you're not really Bruce Campbell. He's like, no, I'm Bruce Campbell. And so like he called me up on the phone one time and basically he talked to me.
Bruce.
Yeah. That was pretty much it. Well, first my mom picked up the phone. He's like, yeah, is Matt there? She's like, who's calling? He's like, this is Bruce Campbell. And my mom was like, Matt, some guy named Bruce Campbell's calling you. I was like, what? So I got on the phone with him for like 2 hours. And he basically, he was like, yeah, dude, this is just easier than answering all your emails. Just ask your questions. And so like he spent 2 hours just walking me through like every question I ever had about the Evil Dead franchise. It was amazing. And ever since then I've been like the biggest Bruce Campbell fan ever. Like he was just so awesome to do that to like some random teenager in Ohio at the time that he met online. But for people out there who love cinema and who are like filmmakers and like want to like learn the language of cinema, I feel like these movies are perfect to study because like these are Sam Raimi's masterpieces essentially. Like he's made a lot of movies. He's made a lot of like really big movies like the Spider-Man franchise and stuff like that, but none of them are as raw and pure Raimi as these movies. And his visual style is just so much at the forefront of these films. Like I feel like these films probably influenced Zack Snyder and his visual style, you know, like they're that original, that good, that unique, and that frenetic. Like around this time, I feel like him and Peter Jackson, who was off in New Zealand, were doing some of the most innovative stuff, low budget horror, you know. And so like I fell in love with this movie. I must have watched this movie like 1,000 times.
First of all, I'm jealous. Second of all, it's such a unique position where you're like, oh, I'm like, hi, I'm Bruce Willis. I want to talk to you about how we Die Hard came together. It's like, shit, man. Okay, I'll listen to you forever. and just have a good time. And awesome.
All I could see is back then, especially when you were kids, like put it on speakerphone and try to record. Like, can you say groovy again?
Well, nowadays it'd just be a cameo. You'd pay $50 and
Yeah, really, yeah.
send you a minute-long message.
I want to talk about a little bit about the animation, and I want to talk about the makeup or the makeup artistry, because it's a big part of this movie. Because we can talk on and on about what's going on in the movie, but generally speaking, from end to end, there's not a lot going on in the story. But a lot of it is like subtle comedy and sort of visual cues and all that stuff. And one of the things that kind of helped this movie be what it is the inventiveness and the how much can we go crazy with these rubber monsters or the rubber makeup.
Well,
I think,
this was before CGI, so
oh
like
yeah,
this was the only tools they had available to them.
And we
yeah,
all
I
know what
know.
happened to Applehead, which we'll talk about Applehead when we get to the scene. But one of the most interesting things too is, as you mentioned, Matt, before, how Sam liked to kind of punish his friends. Bit of a sadist.
Very sadistic. Yes.
Yeah.
In some of the original the shots of him going out of the Delta 88, and also where branches are hitting him in the face. That's Sam off camera just swinging branches at Bruce Campbell's face.
Well, you know what's funny is some of the most legendary directors are famous for being kind of sadistic with their actors. Like you had Hitchcock, you had Kubrick, you have James Cameron. Like these are all guys who were very big on just kind of like torturing or berating their actors. And I feel like Sam Raimi, he maybe doesn't take it to that extreme, because a lot of these guys would do it in order to pull performances out of actors. Raimi just does it because he likes torturing his friends. So
Yeah, and a lot of All My Feelings mentioned that a lot of the shots that were made, or the scenes that were made very slowly in order to speed them up. So that whole shot where the demon kind of pushes him away and he gets flung by those branches, that took a day to shoot. A full day of shooting, where Bruce Campbell was just standing like this, doing different, expressions, getting hit in the face, and gets turned around. I think.
Yeah, he was on a rig. He was on a rig.
Yeah, I think the truck driver or the operator of the rig asked Bruce what he ate for breakfast, and before Bruce answers, like, "Don't worry, we'll know in a bit." Because around, I like, that's funny. And the thing is this, and Matt, you mentioned it. He's being sadistic, but one of the things that everybody said about this, about the whole production of it, nobody was yelling at each other. Nobody was mad. Everybody was willing to work. Everybody was willing to work long hours. And I don't know if you have this on your notes, All My Feelings, but there was a DP that got fired about a week or two into the movie.
Yes, yeah.
Could you tell us that story? Do you have it?
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, so there was a DP that Raimi wanted to work with. I don't remember the name of. I'm sorry, but he had a full crew with him. So he brought in his people, and sort of like they went through about the day, and there was 5 o'clock, and Raimi wanted to keep shooting, and the DP said, "No, it's 5 o'clock. I'm done shooting." And Raimi's like, "Huh? We have like a couple more scenes to do before let's finish wrapping." And he's like, "No, it's 5 o'clock. We're done. My team is done." And they went off. They were fired during that weekend and replaced by somebody else. And the somebody else that replaced him was like, "Yeah, I'm willing to work whatever it takes to make this movie great, because I like the concepts and I like what you're doing here."
I think that's what you're getting from watching all of these films, especially a lot of the ones that the curated list that Horror Armorata and I several other people have added onto that horror list.
Yeah.
Is you're seeing a lot of these films, especially the ones that on the lower side of the budget, especially in the 80s, where they were willing to do the work because they wanted to make the movie.
Yeah,
And
for
that
sure.
was it.
I mean, if I would have delved deeper into like, I don't know, Puppet Master more, what was that?
Puppet Master,
Troll. A lot of these movies, Ghoulies. I haven't dived back into Ghoulies, but I guess it would be probably the same. All the stuff that is like Rubber Monster, heavy makeup, all that stuff. It takes a lot of work, not like sitting down and putting on the makeup, just coming up with the stuff. I think the makeup guy said from the 750 shots that were in the movie, about 280, 260 were full on makeup shots that they had to prepare for. It's it's a lot. Like it's a lot.
Also, like we talked about how horror films are popular in the sense that their genre, they have a very hardcore fan base, they're relatively cheap to make, and they usually pull in quite a bit of profit. I think what makes Evil Dead 2 stand out so much is simply like the camera work, because it's such a stylized horror movie where in the 80s, like if you look at the stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, it's all very kind of like traditional style of shooting, right? But with Evil Dead, like Raimi made the camera a character in that movie, and like he's very much big on iconography and just the visuals aspect of it. And you could tell that like Raimi's one of these guys, and you can see the Freddy glove in that shot right there. But Raimi's one of these guys who basically he shoots the whole movie in his head before he even gets on set. And he was good friends and roommates with the Coen brothers, who are very much of that same vein. And so like you just had this like weird lightning in a bottle moment with this movie, where you had some of the most talented filmmakers of a new generation come together to make something that basically launched their careers. It was brilliant.
Another thing about it, Raimi has all the movie in his head, but evidently he's bad at storyboarding. But when people actually make him do storyboards, he doesn't know how to draw, so he draws like stick figures. But because the DP who replaced the old one was like, I need a storyboard here, because you have to give me something to work with, and he drew it with stick figures, and he looked at it, was like, yeah, I can work with this, that's fine, I don't need like elaborate like pictures, I just need to know where to place the camera. And on my feelings, did we mention Evil Dead last week about the camera work, or was it off stream?
That was off stream.
Off stream. So we talked about the camera. I talked about the camera work off stream when it comes to Evil Dead, because low budget everything, but you had very special moves that he did with the camera, which was this is 81, and it was so unusual. And to get that in a low budget independent horror film was, to be frank,
I mean,
I was amazed that they got shots. One of the shots was literally camera coming from the back like this to the front of Bruce Campbell's head, and it was like, whoa.
Yeah, like a
modern stuff.
A 180 degree kind of like pan, but
on the back of the head,
the original Evil Dead was shot before Steadicam existed, and so whenever they did the Evil Cam, they basically like mounted the camera to like a 2x4, and they just had two guys on, like a guy on either end, just running through the forest with it. And like the amount of innovation and originality and creativity that went into all these movies was just second to none. And it could only come from like this group of filmmakers who kind of grew up together and like knew each other and trusted each other, and could bounce ideas off of each other. And I think that's what makes these movies kind of special, is because they were actually made with love, even though like by all accounts, like they're just like kind of these like low budget horror movies, but like they're really not. They're kind of like a product of a real passion for filmmaking, not even necessarily horror filmmaking, but just filmmaking in general. Like everyone who was involved with these movies wanted to be there, wanted to make this movie, whether it was good or not, whatever the end product was, like they didn't care. They were just passionate about making the movie.
Yeah. One thing I'll mention is they had to construct a rig, because there's a shot where the camera kind of follows the car, Ash's car, not from ground level, not from like sight level, but from ground level, and then it had to come up and then go through the windshields. So they had to make something that not only was like a battering ram, so the camera was here, and they had to put two little side pokers to actually poke in the windshield, but they had to do it so that it can rise up from the ground. So it was very interesting. And then, of course, it was used for a 5-second shot and never used again.
Also, that Oldsmobile makes cameos
Delta
in
88, yeah.
almost every Sam Raimi movie and some Coen Brothers movies too. So.
Yeah. Oh,
they call
also,
they call it the classic, by the way.
Yeah,
it's called the
yeah.
classic.
Car.
Yeah. But really, speaking of just innovation, once we get to that scene, when we get to that point, the eyeball scene, how they had to
we
create an entire rig around the eyeball itself.
No, I just need to find it. Go ahead, just shoot the shit. It's we're going to go back and forth with this movie, not all the way straight through.
So with the eyeball popping out, they actually had from DGF Effects create basically just they had a ping pong ball that they painted, and then they put the little the nerve stem on the back of it and everything, and they actually mounted it to a motor that was attached to the camera to have it fly. So that when it looks like it's flying through the air, when it pops out, that's how they got that shot established. And then when it goes to the actress playing Bobby Joe, when it goes quote unquote into her mouth, that was actually shot in reverse. So she had it in her mouth and spit it out.
Oh, cool. Okay. I didn't remember that.
So they cut them together. And again, Raimi is the master of being able to splice different kind of film mediums and just how he can reverse and change scenes in such a way that they work in one continuous loop almost seamlessly. And if you didn't know that, you would just watch it and go, of course, it's still kind of a B movie kind of horror film, so you don't really look that deep into it. But if you were to look, you're like, okay, I can see where they kind of have that little splice in between where the scenes are. But if you're not looking for it, you're like, wow, pretty well done with practical effects.
Yeah. Even the going back to the makeup itself, I will find it. I don't remember exactly where it is. It's where they literally try to push Henrietta down and the eyeball just pops open.
Out. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Found it. I found it. Just give me a second. Give me. There. I found this. Okay.
Yeah, you can see like the little what do you call it?
Yeah,
wire thing that's holding it up.
Yeah, but it's only for like a fraction of a second, and then it's literally you see Bobby Joe pull her head back, and if you look for it in reverse, you can see it easily. But
they did a reference to that in the latest Evil Dead movie, Evil Dead Rise. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I'm still kind of iffy about that.
Iffy on seeing it, or iffy after having seen it?
Iffy after having seen it.
Mm-hmm.
See, I actually like the remake that they did in the what was that? Was it 2013?
See, honestly, like I just wish that they went more the Ash versus Evil Dead route in terms of like where these movies are going. The final act of Evil Dead Rise, where basically they're throwing in every reference they can possibly do to the originals. I enjoyed that part, and then everything else, I was just like, I'm just not into it.
So you think it's one of those movies where it's we've got a little bit of member berries for you, and
I feel like what made Evil Dead special was that it wasn't technically a horror movie. It was a comedy / parody of horror movies, and correct, so like the remakes are all missing that sense of humor. They're trying to be serious horror movies, and I don't think Evil Dead as a franchise lends itself to being serious. The fact that Bruce Campbell is one of the greatest comedic actors to ever live, in my opinion, and he's the leading character of these movies. You know, you don't have that in any of these remakes. And you know, I actually got to see Evil Dead the musical when it was playing out here in Las Vegas. And
nice.
And that's all about the campy humor of these movies, and that's what people show up for. They want the over the top gore. That's not scary. It's so over the top that it's funny. You know, they want Ash being like a complete jackhole. You know, the machismo dude who, like, you know, fights the armies of evil.
To me,
Like it's
like
just
the lovable. To me, he was always been the sort of the lovable rogue that you like. You're drawn to him. He's not the good guy. He's like,
well, he's a blowhard, right? Like it's almost like the joke with John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China, where Kurt Russell is not actually the hero of that movie. He's like the sidekick, but because he's the blustery white guy, you think he's the hero. And the same can be said of Ash, where like Ash usually screws things up more than he fixes things, and that's kind of like his curse, is like he's always just screwing things up, but in his mind he's the hero of the story.
Well, in
right?
so many ways too, that's kind of, I wouldn't say that Bruce Campbell was pigeonholed throughout his career, but that's the majority of the roles that he's in, where he is the lovable scamp, where like, you're supposed to be our hero, but you're kind of a dick.
I mean, that's the same character, sort of the same character in Xena. Is Autolycus.
That was always the joke, though, right? Like he's a dick and he's not a hero, but he thinks he's the hero. So that's what made it funny.
He would have been a great Solo, but we'll put that aside. It's not going to happen anymore. I do love. I showed.
Well, he was great in Bubba Hotep.
Yes, he was.
I showed it on screen, but that mask, Ted is Ed, right?
That's Ed. Yeah, that's Professor Ed.
Yeah. Was wearing one of the things is like they wanted to make it like a shark, so he had a lot of rows of teeth. But it would be, when you had it on, it had to be in his mouth. So they put it in his mouth and they showed it to Raimi, and he loved it because when the actor playing Ed had it in his mouth, after like a minute or two, he was starting to drool, and Raimi was like, "That's it,
perfect.
I got it.
Yeah,
print, cut, let's go, we got it."
Yeah. What's also interesting too is the Spiegel's humor is really apparent in this. Because obviously when Ash just cut his hand off, he puts the bucket over it and puts all the books on top of it. What's the top book?
Farewell to Arms.
Farewell to Arms. My mind. I had it primed and ready just because Matt said emphasis, the humor. Yes.
Yeah.
It didn't lose on me. The humor of Farewell to Arms, where took my arm away.
Well, also the whole scene where Bruce is basically beating himself up.
Yeah,
with his possessed hand, like that was all Bruce Campbell doing physical comedy right there, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, he like shattered not real, but prop plates.
It's a sugar glass. Well, some of the bottles and plates are the faux sugar glass that was actually just painted over.
And he definitely said they hurt a lot. And Raimi said, "Well, just keep breaking them.
Keep doing it.
Just keep doing it, man." But one of the things that I loved about this movie, especially when I first saw it, is that the gore effects are so over the top that they're not disgusting. They're not like they're not horrific. They're humorous in a way. And like the part where Ash cuts off his hand with a chainsaw, normally you'd think like, oh my God, that's such a terrible, horrible thing to see in a movie. But when they do it and the blood's just spraying Ash's face, it's funny. It's so over the top that it's not off-putting at all. And the entire movie's like that.
Yes.
Especially this scene.
Before we talk about this, I wanted to just touch back on the dichotomy between the original Evil Deads and the remakes. Now, the new remake, the first one, Had they kept with just that pure horror vibe, I think it would have been fine. But in the second film, again, as you mentioned, Matt, they just kept going, hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You remember all of these great things that was back in these old 80s horror films? Remember that? And then show this horrific violence. You can't have it both ways. If they were to keep the new Evil Dead on that same track where they started with the original new remake and kept it pure horror, would have been fine. But you can't try to just be, oh yeah, remember all of this fun stuff, and then see some horrific, terrible things in the next scene. It just can't be done.
Yeah,
Wait.
like I disagree that it would have been fine if it was just straight horror, simply because
Okay,
the thing
that's fine.
the thing that made this franchise unique amongst the horror genre was its humor, was its fun. And I think that's the thing that really built the fan base, because like they're pretty mediocre horror movies, right? But because they're
Yeah.
so much fun, because they don't take themselves seriously,
Seriously, yeah.
that's what made it a cult classic, in my opinion.
I want to show you something. I wasn't prepping it up. I just thought about it right now, just because you said something, and it kind of hit exactly what I was trying to convey. And I actually wrote the review that I've done. I've literally ended it with where is it? Where is it? I want to be clear. Okay, never mind. I have it primed. Just need to find the line. But the line that I said at the sort of the very end is something that is very important. This movie is a great movie to take to someone who doesn't like horror films and introduce him to a horror film.
Yes.
You had the same experience, Matt. You're not into horror films. I had the same experience with this, like rewatching it, and I was like, yeah, I get it. This movie, because it's not really a horror film, it's a dark comedy disguised as a horror film, would be a great introduction to somebody who really isn't really into that genre. I was like, oh, I can get into this. Like, there's some gore, there's some like nasty shit, but overall the theme of it is not jump scares and making crazy and all that stuff. And again, the rubber monsters are a thing, and the animatronics is a thing, but it's not too crazy. And the most important thing is Bruce's performance, or Ash's character. But yeah. All right, cool. I want to get to.
Do you want to talk about the blood
Yes.
shooting
Yes.
scene?
Yes. Go ahead, Matt. Lay it on us.
So this is another example of Raimi's kind of like mastery of shooting stuff and his innovation. So like basically Bruce Campbell is on a board here, right? Kind of like a diving board type thing.
Yeah.
And he's lying horizontally. And so like they're dumping this blood on him from like right on top, but because of the way that the camera's framed and stuff like that, it looks like it's being shot right at him. And this was like actual, I believe, like Caro syrup mixed with like something to make it a little bit more viscous. But in Raimi's sadistic nature, like he just dumped this on Bruce, and Bruce's reaction on this is great. But like he was basically like blowing red snot for like 2 weeks.
2 weeks
After this thing, and like it just got everywhere on him. And also the Caro syrup made like, you know, it was hard to wash off, and so
everywhere.
like flies were plaguing him everywhere he went and stuff like that. So he really suffered to get this shot. But this is one of the most iconic shots in the entire movie, because like typically like it's just such a comedic amount of blood. Like if you think about like the only thing prior to this had been Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, where you have that flood of blood coming out of the elevators, right?
Yes.
And that's like the most iconic shot from The Shining, and it's something that's very scary and creepy. And Raimi took that same concept but made it into a joke. And like just Bruce's reaction as he's just getting this blood dumped on him is so fucking funny. I laughed my ass off when I first saw this thing, because it was so unexpected. Like you didn't expect this torrent of blood to just start shooting at him, but like when it does, he's just sitting there like, ah.
Yeah,
it's really, really funny.
Yeah, the setup to this is actually him fighting his hand that just escaped from the bucket. right? See, he
Yeah,
thought
and
he had it
and
under
Raimi
control, but he escaped.
Raimi does that thing where, like, you know, like Ash thinks that he shot the hand through the wall, and there's this little trickle of blood that comes out of the hole that the bullets made. And Ash thinks he got him, and then all of a sudden, boom! Like this gusher just comes out, and then right after this, like he's like slipping around on the stage. Like it cuts back to a wide shot, and he's like slipping on blood because there's just so much of it. It's hilarious.
And that leads right into, actually, oddly enough, what's really hilarious is the scene that was done on a lark.
Which one?
Spiegel did a Popeye laugh imitation by messing with one of the goose lights. That was the impetus behind them doing the entire laughing scene.
Oh, okay. So when everybody's laughing and Ash is laughing?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
And actually, if you look up, if you notice that when the goose light moves, it actually plays Spiegel's Popeye laugh.
Fun fact: Bruce Campbell kept the mounted deer head.
Yeah,
this one. No,
and yeah, not that one, but like the actual mounted deer head.
One. Yeah.
And in fact, when he was guest starring on Ellen, he like brought it with him in like one episode where like it was actually on screen with him. It's kind of funny.
I was gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong, man, but when they go back to the cabin in Ash versus Evil Dead, that head's still on the wall, correct?
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen that. But if it was, like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because like I said, like Bruce owns that thing, so he probably brought it to set with him.
This is the one you mentioned.
But see, it's the lamp that's on the table on the left.
Yeah.
There, yeah, that's the goose lamp.
The one I don't know. You can see my thing, right? It's this one. There's a close up of it as the scene kind of starts. But
and you can actually hear Spiegel's laugh there. Yeah.
Can't really show it on screen because we'll get dinged. This movie
I know.
gets dinged for less than 7 seconds of footage on it, for sure. I had to re-edit 4 times today to make just the review work. So yeah, Lionsgate app apparently owns this for some reason.
Well, didn't they buy out New Line? Because I believe New Line originally owned it. I don't know.
No, New Line didn't own this. New Line owns the Evil
Oh,
Dead.
the original.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So I don't know. Maybe they bought De Laurentiis's library of stuff. I have no idea. We didn't quite mention the entire group. I kind of tangentially, but as the group kind of start with Annie, the daughter of the professor, and Ed kind of stumble upon the 2 yokels as was like, okay, we can't move on. We need to get to the cabin. Why can't we get to the cabin? Because the bridge is down. So they find somewhere around to get to the cabin. As they meet Ash, they literally the what's the name of the redneck guy? He just bursts through the door and just subdues Ash.
That
and
was
Ash,
Jake.
Like, Jake. It's like, are you dead or what are you? And kind of realize what's going on.
Well, no, it's because Ash shoots out of the door and wings Bobby Joe.
Yeah, and because he thinks that it's part of the haunting.
Yeah,
up to that point. Up to that point, Ash is basically just slowly going insane as the Evil Dead are torturing him in that cabin.
And the one thing that kind of ties the two together, and this is a shot that was in the first one, as they kind of knock Ash into the basement for the
cellar. Yeah,
it's the one where they just look towards like the downstairs. It's sort of the same shot that they had in the original Evil Dead. Again, using a lot of these shots again and again just to tie in the earlier work to this work, even though it's in the middle of the movie. And another thing that is like camera related is there's a certain point they had to emphasize the sort of the haunting bits. Is they're using a different, I think it's a different filter. I need to get to that point. It's tough.
We should also point out.
Yeah, this one. It's of the same vein, but it's a full kind of where they're looking at our characters and off the characters, but the camera is a little bit on a like sort of isometric kind of a way to give us a sort of a dreamlike, wonky kind of a feel to it, as if something's going on. So it's a very visual thing, but just to give us that little that haunting feeling, I would say.
We should also point out that originally Sam Raimi, when he was casting the movie, he wanted Holly Hunter to play the part of Bobby Joe.
Yep.
And basically, Holly Hunter was roommates with the Coens, the Coen brothers, and Raimi had kind of a thing for her, and so he wanted to cast her in his movie so he could kind of work his magic on her. And when he pitched his casting list to the studio, the De Laurentiis company, they were like, "We want someone more attractive for Bobby Joe," and so he was forced to, give up his dream of sleazing on Holly Hunter.
Holly Hunter or Helen Hunt?
Holly Hunter.
Feeling said Helen Hunt.
I think he might have misspoke. It's the girl from Raising Arizona.
Yeah, I know who Holly Hunter is. The girl from the piano in Network, and not Network. Network is somebody else.
Yeah, I did misspeak there. Don't worry about it.
There's another one. There's another one with Holly Hunter and the guy who plays General Ross, who recently died. I forgot. I'm me and names. Never mind. It's all of it's
William Hurt.
William Hurt. They had a sort of a newsroom kind of feel, very similar to Network, but not really. I don't remember the name of the movie.
But no, Holly Hunter was in with like the whole Coen crew and stuff like that. So
okay, no problem. Oh, of course, I turned off the movie. Why not? See, this is why they pay me the big bucks.
Do you guys want to talk about Applehead?
We'll talk about Applehead right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'll find it.
Oh, well, I mean, so Ash speaks from the Book of the Dead to give the evil form, and the evil sticks its face in through the door. And that was what the crew affectionately dubbed Applehead. And basically, it gave a face to the evil. But what was funny is like that thing was so big that they couldn't like pack it up and ship it off to whatever storage space De Laurentiis had in Hollywood.
Yep.
So they just kind of like threw it away, and nobody knew what happened to it for like decades.
No,
and
actually, they didn't throw it away. They lost it. And they found it in a local haunted house.
yeah. So, somehow a local haunted house in, what was it, North Carolina or South Carolina, something like that, just repurposed Applehead for like their own, little shop of horrors there.
Yep.
This one, the one thing that to me when I was watching the behind the scenes, one of the interesting parts is actually how they made Ash have the like streak in his head before Applehead kind of shows his face as they're trying to banish everything.
That seems hilarious too, by the way.
Yeah.
Look on Bruce's face when his hair goes gray.
Yeah. I want to get to
when he gets his rogue streak.
Yeah.
I want to get to
Exactly.
that. Hold.
His Mr. Fantastic streak.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess.
6-1, really.
He had to work with the animatronics guys and the makeup guys for about, I think it's about 16 hours or 18 hours, as he had to keep having the face and little by little paint the streak in his head and move his hair a little bit as they do this frame by frame, shot by shot, adding in more and more and more. And you can add in the sadistic factor to this one because he was a trooper. He said, yep. I just sat there and let it happen. Like, okay. The shot is great. And you could not get this shot in any other way in 1986 or 7 when they shot this thing, because it's just, they just couldn't do it. They could have done it with a mock-up head of his, but it would be far too expensive, and they've already spent a big chunk on the entire, like, all the different heads that they used and different rubber masks and all that stuff. So they had to just do it on the fly, and it's very very fun. And it became kind of a signature, right? That white streak in his head became a signature thing for Bruce.
Well, it was part of his character.
Yeah. Just before that, there's a little thing with the dagger where Ash kind of turns into a deadite, basically,
Yeah, he
right?
gets possessed.
And Annie has had to. And he had to defend herself. At a certain point, Jake was trying to get in. He got in, and the only thing she had was the dagger, so she stuck him in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And stuck him
What's
right
great too is there's a lot of really great comedy in between these scenes too, where we have Jake trying to bust in, and there's also when they first do the whole well we'll split up. No, we're gonna all go together. And Jake goes, hell no, we're not.
This is where they're.
And the scene where Jake and Bobby Joe are standing, and it just said like, Jake, you can go ahead. You can let go of my hand now. Bobby Joe, I ain't holding your hand, girl.
It's Ash's possessed hand. Yeah.
I think it's right there, I guess. Right before. It's all over the place.
They also did like a dumbed down version of the tree rape scene in this one.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I wanted to get to that. So that's another shot where they shot it backwards,
Mm-hmm.
where they had to rig something to her face because she was wearing extra bits through her face, because they wanted the shot to be the branches going into the face as she's being dragged into the forest. So what they did was shot it backwards as they had everything inserted in, and slowly pulled back as she was slowly dragged backwards onto this sort of a dolly thing that they used, sort of like same rig that they used for a dolly, but as a sort of a board that she laid on.
That was another scene from the original, which was far more graphic in the first one.
Yes,
that they kind of they kind of repurposed for this one. So
yeah, and they mentioned that Bobby Joe gets tree raped in the commentary, but she doesn't really get raped. She's more like
you don't see it
dragged across the fucking floor.
Well, they do kind of show her like losing the branches, taking off bits of her clothing, where they're alluding to what happened in the previous film.
Yes. Where in the previous film, there's literally two branches grabbing the sides of the poor. I think it's his Ash's sister, right?
That was Annie. Yeah.
Grab her legs apart and then fully maybe inserting.
No, I'm sorry. It wasn't Annie. No, I'm thinking. See, I'm just remembering the characters' names.
Sure.
Matt, you remember?
I think
it was his sister in that.
But yeah. And that's when she gets possessed, essentially, afterwards. But I think with Bobby Joe, the final shot is her speeding towards a tree with her legs spread, and so like that was like implied as to what was going to happen if you'd seen the first one. So
yeah.
And we see kind of Jake going out and being, let's say, less than
Bobby Joe. Where are you? Because I mean, like, look at Jake and look at Bobby Joe. He's like, I ain't gonna do much better than that.
Like, I have hit my peak and I am not losing it now.
I wanted to mention the fact that the girl playing Annie, is it something Berry? I don't remember names in me. Anyway, when she was younger, she was a ballet dancer, and she fucked up her knees. When she carried Jake, the actor playing Jake, she actually carried him. And this is one of Raimi's sadistical things where he made her do this about 17 times in order to get the shot that he wanted. And she actually did carry the actor playing Jake across the thing. So he helped a little bit, but his directions is don't help her. So she had to carry him like whatever, 10 feet or 15 feet. But she had to do that again and again and again in order to get the shot, because apparently the lighting wasn't good in one and the sound was fucked up in the other one. So the poor lady had to strain her knees to get that shot. Great. And of course, when actual possessed Ash comes in, she goes all crazy with the axe, but it really doesn't do her any good. The whole scene, even though you're supposed to be scared, to me, I was laughing the entire time. Just because of her expressions, which was over the top kind of scream queen, and Ash's expressions with the full makeup going just, he was into it. He was completely into it, and he could not see anything with those contacts. So it was a great little piece. I don't know how he got away from the axe going right into his head, because it didn't look like it was a stunt guy.
Yeah.
Really did, because he was just on the floor or on one of the walls, and suddenly there's like an axe rushing towards his head and missing him by this much. So it was very, very frightening. So at one point, Ash and Annie decide, well, we can read from these pages and get rid of these deadites and send them all back. But we have to defend ourselves. So what they do, they literally have an A-team moment where they just, we'll just rig over this this chainsaw on your hand and make sure if you do this, it will actually turn it on, and we'll just chop off this this shotgun so it'll be easier. And you have the shot where Ash kind of,
Flips it
after
back.
after he chops off the head of the reformed Henrietta, I think. He chopped it off and then he shoots it, and then he just does like that little
Swallow
combo
this,
thing and puts
yeah.
it on the back. It's like, oh, the hero is coming.
Well,
has
we do get
finally-
the series first groovy.
The best one-liner in any movie ever made. Just like the build up to that one ridiculous line. It was fantastic.
I'll find
I
it.
laughed the first time I saw that. I laughed so hard. I was like,
yeah.
really? That's your one-liner? That was
Yeah.
fantastic.
And what's great too is later when he's actually when he's in the cellar in the water next to the pages, there's a rat that's running by him.
Yeah.
They had a name for that rat.
Okay.
His name was Senor Cajones.
And that was a real rat that wasn't supposed to be there. It was just like,
Yep.
It was in the auditorium that they were shooting in, and Senor Cajones just made his on-screen appearance.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't mention it, but they did technically shot in an old school in North Carolina, where they did a mock-up of the entire cabin. So they had outside exterior shots with a real cabin, but they also recreated the same cabin as their sort of stage where they
Soundstage,
shot
yeah.
every single day. And the production office was in one of the janitorial offices or somewhere, where the main producer, not just Bruce and the other guys, but the main producer was sitting in. And the old science lab was where the makeup artists actually worked. So it was kind of a weird setup where they actually did all the different shots, but when they did the exteriors, it's all deep forest. It's not the same Tennessee location, right? The exterior shots, right? Oma Felix?
Yeah, it was different.
It's not this. No, it's not the same.
Was because
location,
we
no.
talked about it off stream. I think the old Tennessee one was demolished right after they shot there, so it wasn't usable, right? Or was it demolished later? I don't know. Never mind.
Well, it was demolished later, and also they shot outside of the same general location for the outside scenes of where The Color Purple was filmed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that was in North Carolina as well, because I know
Yeah.
Raimi he wanted to be far away from De Laurentiis, so like he could limit the interference from the production studio.
And actually, De
and-
Laurentiis was banned from being on set.
Oh, the one thing that was on my mind. Yeah. Ash goes down to the basement right before he gets like pulled into Henrietta. He goes down to the basement because Jake threw the bunch of pages there, right? That was the setup. That's why he went down there. He picks up page after page after page and then slowly walks back through the stairs. And what he does, he's at the bottom of the stairs. He just flings the pages up to Annie, and they first of all, they
perfectly and
they all perfectly keep together and not being spilled all over the place, which was okay. I guess it's leather, so it must have some sort of weight.
human skin.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not leather. I mean, you could call it human leather, I guess.
Well, it's the same leather that Leatherface used. Okay, make your imagination work. Anyway, that to me was the most ridiculous. That from everything else, that was the most ridiculous, unbelievable thing I could have had for this movie. That's the only thing that bothered me. Everything else was legit good. So he flings the pages up to Annie, and Annie starts reading it, and Henrietta pulls Ash away, and that's where everything kind of falls up into the momentum of, oh, we're here to banish everything. Applehead coming in at one stage and all that stuff, and Annie gets killed. Not before she manages to say the last kind of conda or whatever she used to banish everything. And before we talked about the end scene, we'll just have a little stop right there and play our second game of the night. It is called Screen Fighter.
Round 1, fight.
Screen Fighter is where we take two movies, spit them together, and see which one is the best one. If there's no discernible difference between the two, both of them are good or both of them are bad, we fall into our criteria, which is Saturday evening, Friday evening, out with the boys, out with the girls, out with your significant other. Two movies in a vacuum. Which one will we pop in? Chat participation is most welcome. And why is it not working? Oh, that's why. Here we go. New horror, old horror, Get Out, or The Evil Dead.
Anything made by Jordan Peele is going to lose. So The Evil Dead, definitely.
Okay. Not
That
a fair fight.
is-
All my feelings?
That is a wacky Japanese poster.
Yes.
That is, wow. That is truly something
It
else.
literally, do you know what? It came up first, but the first couple, but the other side, so it wasn't Get Out. It was Evil Dead. And I think it was like Man of the Year with Robin Williams, which we covered. Then it was some sort of comedy. I don't remember what it is. I'm like, okay, that's bad. We'll just switch the other one. Clicked it, and it was Get Out. It's like, okay. I mean, I know who's going to win, but it's still...
Yeah. It's still obviously going to be,
It's,
I would
it's
say,
new horror, old horror. That's it.
I would say Get Out was probably the best of Jordan Peele's films. I think that's a fair assumption, Matt.
I didn't like
Would
it.
you agree with that?
I didn't like it. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't.
You-
Of
you mean
Us
it-
or Nope?
You mean it's the least shitty of his shitty movies?
Yeah.
All right. So another Raimi, Spider-Man or The King's Speech.
Spider-Man, definitely.
Feelings?
Spider-Man, 100%.
I don't like
The-
Spider-Man.
The King's Speech is good, but it's very slow, and it leads up to basically the main character giving a speech.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is way more fun.
I would say, given the criteria, it would have to be Spider-Man, but I think King's Speech is a better film. But the King's Speech is a one watch. You've seen it.
Yep.
Move on.
I think the criteria is there only if they're both good or bad. It's not the normal way to judge it, but it's your way of judging it. That's fine. I watched the King's Speech about a year ago. I wasn't impressed. It's a story. I didn't like the story that was told there. It wasn't innovative. It was.
I mean, it's based on a true story.
Everything was
so-
leaning on
Yeah.
the performances of the actors. Otherwise, it's very boring.
This is like, Meph, you're like, well, it was a movie.
It was a movie. Yeah, it was a movie. You know what? It was an Oscar bait movie for real. To me, it was an Oscar bait movie. I don't particularly like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man because I don't like Spider-Man. But it's a much better film, and if you just look at it in terms of innovation, and we talked about this, the cinematography, it's just superb.
Oh, and also you get to see, crazy Willem Dafoe face.
I have a major issue with the Goblin character in Spider-Man. I thought it was either rubber monster time makeup or do a full CG at 2001. I hate the armored goblin.
And
Right.
I'm sorry to say, but that's the worst version of Harry Osborn. Ugh. In all medium.
Fine. Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, which is the second Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie, and
Yes.
Phenomenon.
I'm going to go with Phenomenon on this one.
All right. Feelings?
Now, correct me if Phenomenon is the one where John Travolta's the angel, right?
No.
That's
No.
Michael.
That's Michael. Okay.
Phenomenon,
can't-
he has like a brain tumor that lets him have powers, and he has like special powers, but it kills him in the end.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, then Phenomenon.
Opposite
Yeah.
Kira Sedgwick, right?
Yeah.
It's Phenomenon for me. It's a really downer of a movie, to be fair, but okay. Goon I've never seen this movie.
That's a sequel to the original Goon.
Which it
never
actually
seen
would have
that.
been a
I've
lot.
never seen
You
that
would have
either.
actually preferred to see that than watch La La Land again. I can tell you that
All right.
much.
Volcano and La La Land. Matt?
So I got to go with Volcano just because of Tommy Lee Jones. I hate musicals. So even though La La Land's probably the superior movie, I just don't like musicals.
Feelings?
I abhor La La Land. And I think Volcano was the better of the two Volcano films because this is the same year that Dante's Peak came
Yeah.
out, correct? Yeah.
Yes. According to the Post and 400 votes, Dante's Peak is superior to Volcano. So I don't know what you're talking about. I would definitely watch Volcano, even though I don't like disaster movies. I love Tommy Lee Jones. La
Yeah,
La Land
he
was nothing special.
Tommy
seen
Lee
it.
Jones was basically his
minutes of it.
character from The Fugitive in Volcano. And but the whole movie was ruined at the end when like everyone's covered by ash and the little kid says everyone looks the same to make a statement about race in America.
Yeah.
I've seen about 25 minutes of La La Land, and it's 25 minutes that I've definitely asked my wife. It's enough. It's definitely enough.
And oddly, if I were to watch a movie with Emma Stone and Ryan Reynolds, I would rather watch, was it Crazy Stupid Love?
Or
Which isn't a great movie either, but I'd rather watch that.
that's Emma Stone, Easy A.
Hey, look!
The
We were just discussing it.
movie I was just talking about, which in Hebrew says "The President is in Love," or Ray, the biopic.
Yeah, so I didn't like Ray. I mean, great performance by Jamie Foxx, but The American President's a really good freaking movie. I love that movie. It is what's his name? The guy who wrote The West Wing, Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah.
And it's a really good movie. It's very rewatchable. It's not very political considering that it's about like politics, but it's more of a love story.
Yeah, it's a
And
rom-com.
yeah, and I found Ray kind of boring, so I'm gonna go with The American President.
Okay. Feelings?
I feel the same way about Ray that I felt about The King's Speech. You watch it once, great film. Okay, I don't need to see this again.
Okay.
And I think The American President is probably Annette Bening's second best performance, besides
After?
American Beauty.
Okay. I would say I liked Ray better than The American President. Not partial. I like rom-coms, generally speaking, but they have to be good ones. I didn't like this one per se, but I'll go with the vote. Last one. Come on, give me a good one. Here we go. Lone Ranger and Saving Private Ryan.
This isn't even a contest here. Come on.
I know.
Come on, get another one.
It's one of my favorite war films of all time.
It's also like anything up against Spielberg, it's gonna lose. Like case in point, right here.
Come on.
Come on, give us a good pair. A good pair. Like a nice small no. Nightcrawler or The Pianist. This is a good pair because they're totally uncomparable. You can't compare these two.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I didn't like either of these movies, but I guess I'd go with Nightcrawler.
All right. Feelings?
Nightcrawler, 100%.
Yeah. Having drilled down, I you know what? Schindler's List was enough. It was just enough. I'm not partial to too many Holocaust movies anymore. I'm just done. It's not a big thing for me. It's just I'm too partial to that whole thing. I just don't like watching them a lot. It's enough. Every year I see enough of them. So The Pianist, to be perfectly honest, another one of those Oscar bait movies that was like, oh look, he's done a great performance. Oh, Adrian Brody, yeah. But what has he done since? Kong.
Oh no, dude! Alien Brody's been killing it lately. Like he did Peaky Blinders season 3. He was amazing in that. He was recently.
Predators was actually pretty good.
Yeah, Predators was good. Like he's made a lot of TV appearances where he's just been absolutely amazing. I don't think he's headlined a movie though. So
Not in a long time.
yeah.
All right.
But again, on that note, The Pianist is again one of those films that you watch once and go, okay, I've seen it. Good movie, great acting. All right.
I think I've only seen it once. I wasn't impressed. It's just I'll tell you what. There was a TV movie back in the day. I don't know if it was shown, or it's probably a Hallmark movie. I don't know. Here it was shown on TV about a violinist that is playing in a ghetto, and then he tries to protect like 5 kids, and he's not Jewish at all. And hold on. And he's not Jewish at all. And what ends up him going into the furnaces with them because he wanted to calm him down. That's about it. And it's sort of maybe the same kind of vein as The Pianist. All right. Matt, you said you need to go. So we'll just, I want to give your impressions of just that last bit. And we can scroll back a little bit later for us feelings. It's this bit. It's the sort of the Army of Darkness tie-in to this, where Raimi wanted to do a medieval thing, couldn't do a full medieval thing, so he basically just opened up a portal and just threw Ash there.
Which was great too, because if you notice in the missing pages that Annie found on her trip with Ed, it actually shows the illustration of Ash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it shows
Holding it up,
this particular scene. Yeah, and I mentioned it at the start, where it tries to to do a tie-in to what they originally wanted to do to what they've actually done. But to me, because they did have Evil Dead 2 and did the whole, well, we'll basically do a full intermediate movie between Evil Dead and Army of Darkness, actually made Evil Dead, to me, the best one of the trio.
You mean Evil Dead 2?
Yeah, Evil Dead 2, to me, is the best of the trio. So Evil Dead 2, and Army of Darkness, of that trio, my favorite one is this one.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like Evil Dead 2 is the best of the trilogy, but Army of Darkness has the most quotable lines.
Yes.
Yeah. The one thing I mentioned to All My Feelings off stream was like, I remember Evil Dead 2 having the line, "This is my boomstick," which is one of the famous lines from the entire franchise. And I watched this and was like, wait, oh, that's right. And it dawned on me as soon as he was pulled into the portal. I was like, yes, that's it. It's from Army of Darkness.
Cobalt blue steel, walnut stock, and a hair trigger.
Yeah.
As
always, you have to remember, shop smart.
Shop S-Mart.
S-Mart.
But I love the fact that he gets pulled in, but he's sort of has enough confidence to see the sort of that giant demon bat or whatever it is. I was like, oh, I've got this. Kaplank. And then he realizes, oh shit, I'm in the middle of a medieval century or whatever it is. And
which is so odd too. Is Paul got to give me some sugar, baby. but also here he's actually lauded as a hero. In Army of Darkness, he's immediately taken because they think he's another Deadite.
My name is Ash, and I'm a slave. Yes.
All right. Because Mr. Cage has to go, please, sir, plug in your wares before you leave us.
Oh, the guys, thanks for having me on yet again. You guys can check out Salty Nerd Podcast on YouTube. Just go to saltynerdvideo.com. Takes you right to our YouTube page. And you can also listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you can find podcasts. And we release Thursdays and Fridays, and we do live streams every Tuesday and Saturday. So be sure to check out saltynerdlive.com if you want to check out our live streams. And we're going to be having some fun in the coming year. We're doing a lot more sketches, we're doing a little bit more comedy stuff, and we're going to be reviewing lots and lots of movies. So be sure to check us out if you like movies.
Awesome. And all the links are down below, of course, not the Spotify one, but it takes you to your YouTube channel, to your own personal Twitter, and of course, Rumble, where you, I think you're syncing it there, right? You're doing a dual.
Yeah, we simul stream on Rumble.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Matt, for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, bud.
We'll have you sometime next year for something else that you like. All right?
Sounds good.
We'll stay in touch.
Take care.
See you later.
Bye.
All right. Going back, I'm going to go back a little bit. For this. Sort of the... I want to talk about Annie. Because when she arrived, she was like, where's my father? Where's my mother? And the Deadites actually use her to try and like go free. So the Henrietta character is turned, like there's this point where she's singing a sort of a lullaby.
Yeah,
and she's trying to get Annie to open up in order to get possessed. And Annie, from all of them, I think maybe is Jake getting possessed? No. So Jake and Annie were not possessed at all, or not taken over. Let's just say that.
No, it was Ed who got taken over.
Of Annie.
Yeah.
And
what it was is the Deadites. What they do is they do this. I know you haven't watched the series, but they play on, again, they have that whole thing where they mimic the ones that you love to play on your emotions to get you close so they can take you. So what I found interesting is the way that they actually set up this concept where things that are sentimental to the person, because it happens with Ash with Linda's locket.
Yes.
So when Annie actually repeats the lullaby back to the deadite Henrietta, she pauses for a second, as if that like the last like shred of humanity of her soul that was left
Yep.
comes out.
Yep. Exactly. And we see like no makeup Henrietta, and then right back into Ted Raimi.
Just Ted Raimi, yeah, in the suit. Yeah.
I wanted. I didn't mention it before, but if you pay attention closely, there's a struggle between Ash and Henrietta at some point, and if you pause it at the right moment, you can see that parts of the entire suit has come off a little bit.
A little bit. And also, if you notice, you can actually see sweat pouring out of the ears of the costume.
Yes. Now, what
Yeah.
happened was that with Sam Raimi's encouragement, he wanted Ted and Bruce to actually do a full fight, like as real as humanly possible, and get really, really physical. What happened is if you do it too roughly, you actually do rip up this whole suit, and they do rip up the whole suit. So they bring it up to the makeup guys, and they're like frantically trying to sew it back together with some glue and everything to make it work. But the stuff that you see, like for a fraction of a second that the suit is open, this is the point where there wasn't enough hot glue and sewing stuff to actually piece it together
Yeah.
and make sure that actually Ted can function inside that suit
Yes.
for sort of the next shot.
It's very similar with what we talked about with Critters last week, with the big critter arm going through, and where it actually rips, and you can actually see where the fabric tear is on it, because they didn't have another one, and they weren't going to make another one. Tom knows all about that. So we're not going to make another one. Yeah, just keep it.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing is, I was going for it. I lost it. Anyway, the comedy bits, we discussed them. The comedy bits when it comes to Bruce being himself. I'm gonna trail everything back to to the moment where he sees the animated figure of Linda. That whole scene, Sam Raimi apparently shot a girl doing the dance or a guy doing the dance, and he sent it off to the animator, and the animator had to mimic the exact same dance for the puppet or for the figurine that he used, and he did it shot for shot.
Yeah, because it was actually done off of Denise Bixler, who plays Linda. It was her dancing.
Okay, she actually did the dance. They
Yeah.
shot the dance and they moved it up to the animator, and the animator animated it. He said it took him about 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day, every day for about a week to do that and do it exactly like that, because he had to think about every single piece that is moving and every single shot that is shot, because one of the things that hampered him is the fact that there are trees in the shot.
Yeah.
So he needed to go around the trees and make the character kind of move, which was interesting. And
Well, also with the rolling head coming up and then falling back off. Yeah.
yeah, and like I said, where the comedic parts work is actually Bruce's or Ash's reactions to it, his facial features being horrified, but it was, let's say, it was too over the top to be just horrified, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And same goes with when it actually when the head actually bites him and doesn't want to let go.
Yeah, because he's basically just running around screaming like but it's so just completely hyperbolic, where it's almost like, which oddly enough you get to see the mousetrap scene later, just speaking of what I'm going to talk about. It's like in a cartoon when someone gets their hand clapped by a mousetrap, they run around and they're screaming.
Yeah.
and that would be like they would just do like a steam whistle of them just whistling out pain.
Yep, exactly. And like I said, I showed it on screen, but we haven't mentioned it technically, is when it's after he got bitten, he's looking at the camera and already in like inside the this is the guy with the camera, the back of the head is the stunt guy. It's Bruce's stunt guy.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
Bruce
you
is
can
on the other
if
side.
you really look at it, you can clearly tell that's not Bruce Campbell.
But in the like I said, in the moment, you don't really mention it. But Bruce also has extra layers of makeup on him. If you
Mhm.
see the eyes and the eyebrows are a little bit more protruding, as if he's turning into a deadite.
Yeah.
He's not quite there as he steps in outside of the mirror to.
Well, that's supposed to be the Deadite reflection of him. So you could see like that is kind of, in a way, it's clever storytelling by, again, showing, not telling.
Yes, exactly. And as the Bruce deadite kind of shakes up the real Bruce to like, oh,
It's
just
like, no, because like, no, I don't think you're okay.
yeah. And which leads to Bruce kind of cutting off his arm and having that whole tussle with his arm and the buckets of blood as well as the trope, like you said, the arm getting stuck in a finger, a mousetrap.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, again, as it walks away, it flips in the bird. It gives a middle finger before it crawls away.
and the one thing we didn't mention, I did mention the fact that Jake and Bobby Joe are showing like Annie and Ed the way in. But the one thing that really made me laugh is this, because it kind of reminded me of a scene from Spaceballs. And I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's Her Royal Highness.
Yeah, where she's like, because she only had 2 small suitcases.
Exactly. And it was like, that's a like they came out the same year. This is 87. I don't know if he was inspired by it. I don't know what it is, but the gag really works. The gag really works, at least for me.
No.
At least for me. And that's about it. I'll sum up what I thought about the movie. Having not watched it too many times, I'm not a big Evil Dead fan or whatever. I do like it, and like I said, I do prefer Evil Dead 2 to all the other movies, just because of what it is, where it turns like the comedy goes way off the handle in Army of Darkness, like real, like more of a we'll call it more of a slapstick comedy than a dark comedy, and
Very
I
much
might
so. This is
problem
more
it.
like a Three Stooges-esque than
Yeah,
than a dark or a black comedy. Yeah.
because apparently Sam Raimi always wanted to do a Three Stooges movie.
Yeah.
That was his goal in life. Good for him. But the fact of the matter is, the subtle comedy, the satire, the dark humor that you have in this one really works for me. And you can't really pinpoint it out. It's like, this is funny and this is not, because you can find funny things in this that are not necessarily funny to other people. But if you get the sort of what they're going for, you'll find it in this one. Apparently, Sam Raimi wanted Jake to take off his front teeth because the actor does not have a front teeth.
Yeah.
It's all prosthetics. He wanted him to like do it for once, but the actor flat out refused because he wanted to be taken seriously for some reason in this role. But
even though he's missing 2 of his front teeth anyway, and even with his prosthetic on it, so it's like,
yeah, exactly. Like I said, exactly.
Like, they should have done that for a gag, where like a tree branch hits him or something, and then like now it doesn't have anything, and then put fake blood in his mouth there.
Especially because you had all these like evil tree puppets like 4 or 5 of them that they actually used and maneuvered. I was like,
Yeah.
didn't you have like a small? Fine, that's okay. It's literally the actor refused to take off his teeth. He showed Raimi to get the part, but he didn't want to do it like on set. But
Yeah.
okay, just to sum up and rewatching it, redoing it, I stand by what I said in my review. Is this is a great movie to show a person that is not really into the horror genre, and he or she could get into it after watching this particular film. Gore
Definitely.
and everything all.
Nope, I completely agree with you. One thing I really love about this film is it's so quintessentially Renaissance pictures and everything that they end up creating later on, where everything about the title subverts your expectations. Going into this, you're thinking Evil Dead, you're going to see a horror film, and obviously it is kind of a horror film, but it's really not. It's more of a, again, comedy at heart. And even a lot of the things where even some of the bits in it actually subvert your expectations, where even one scene where Jake is out there calling for Bobby Joe, and it pans and you're expecting Bobby Joe to pop up behind him, but no, it's Deadeye Ash.
Yeah.
And so Raimi's always trying to play these almost little jokes on his own audience too, where he's trying to keep you kind of on your toes on whether or not what is going to happen next. Is it going to be a horror or is it going to be a comedy? It's like, are you going to see a big joke? Is it going to be one big elaborate scene, like a dancing scene, or is someone going to mutilate themselves? Is someone going to put someone's head in a vice and chop it up with a chainsaw?
Which we kind of showed, but only the silhouette. But yeah.
Yes, which is why I think what Matt was saying earlier before he left, this is why the originals stand the test of time, and that's why they're such cult classics and why they're so beloved, is because they're something kind of wholly unique. And there have been kind of some films that kind of tread that line where it kind of breaches on that. Most recent ones I can think of is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yeah. Something that is on the list, but I don't know if I'll get to it because I've changed it a little bit.
Yeah, that in a lot of ways, a Cabin in the Woods is kind of that way too, where there's that comedy angle in Cabin in the Woods, but there's still some genuine horror moments in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't categorize Cabin in the Woods as a dark comedy though. I would put it as it's really tough because Cabin in the Woods is very much Joss Whedon horror rather than just straight up horror.
Yeah.
He has that sort of style, sort of, you could say it's the Buffy Angel style, but turned up to like 17 because you add in the sort of Cabin in the Woods tropes, which is like
all the horror tropes that are included. Yeah.
Cabin in the Woods horror tropes, but with an extra bit in it. Go watch my review.
It's a great movie.
Good movie. I liked it. Anything else?
No, that's really about it. I mean, overall, if you haven't seen it, go see it. And also, I think Army of Darkness is still my favorite, though, overall of the trilogy.
Okay.
Only because it was the first of the trilogy that I've seen. And
yeah, it's something about it. And Tom mentioned it in the chat earlier. I'm not sure if he's here or not. It's fine. He mentioned the first Evil Dead of the Evil Dead franchise that he saw was Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't remember. Maybe I did too, because I remember This Is My Boomstick, and it's been stuck with me ever since. So I just don't remember which one I've seen first. It's definitely either Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness. One of the two. The least I've seen is the original one. The Evil Dead one.
Yeah.
That's why when I did my review, I was like really pleasantly surprised on how well made it is. And
Mhm.
you need to check out all three if you're interested in that franchise, if you haven't seen that franchise.
Definitely, or even if you're just into just any kind of horror films or just practical makeup effects,
Yeah.
because it's a masterclass.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot that went into it. All right, my good friend. Right. This has been great. I want to thank Matthew Kadish for stepping in. I know he's a busy guy, so thank you. But also, next week we will be joined by Tom Connors again, while we will cover Seed of Chucky. So, guys, go watch Seed of Chucky. It is the fifth one, right?
Yes,
Child's Play 2, Child's Play 3, Child's Play 4, Bride of Chucky, and then
Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, then there was Cult of Chucky.
Cult of Chucky. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, so it's the fifth one of the Chuckies, so that's going to be interesting.
it's the one that is the most bombastic and campy.
That's why we chose it, and
Yeah.
I have never seen it yet. I remember stopping at 3, if I'm not mistaken. I know of Bride of Chucky, but I haven't actually watched Bride of Chucky before.
You get kind of a synopsis at the beginning of Seed of Chucky, and once you watch it, you're gonna go, "Why did they make this?"
All right, so guys out there, if you're watching or if you're watching on the replay, go watch Seed of Chucky this week, and then come back to us, and we'll just talk about it for a little bit. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, remember, I didn't say it the last few weeks because, it was rough for me. But remember, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. Have a good night.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.